and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things lipedema. Today my special guest is Jennifer.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And today we're going to be talking about the American healthcare system in regards to insurance, and then more specifically lipedema insurance to cover surgery. So yes, I'll let you maybe give us Brits or anybody else that's out of the US a brief introduction to just the American healthcare system.
Sure. So we've got different plans and different things depending on your situation here in the US. If you're employed, you purchase different healthcare options through the employer that they offer. The employer pays part of it and you pay part of it out of your paycheck. Usually there's options for PPOs or HMOs. And the PPOs, you can pretty much go to any doctor, self-refer, whoever's in your network. Say I have Anthem Blue Cross, so any doctor that's in my PPO Blue Cross network, I can go self-refer myself. Where if you have an HMO, which stands for Health Maintenance Organization, it's kind of, the doctors are in their own groups. So it's divided into IPAs, and you choose the group that you want to be with, but you can only go to those doctors in those groups. And they have to refer you to a specialist if you need to see a specialist. So there's those options. If you're disabled, unemployed, or just low income, there's the Medicaid option. And if you are severely disabled for over a year, you can get on Medicare, which is the national insurance. And the Medicaid and the Medicare, the doctor has to be a Medicare or Medicaid provider as well. And the authorizations to go to specialist applies for that also.
Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, that's a good rundown for people that don't know about it. Very different to my experience, of course, but yeah, so I wanted to speak to you specifically about getting insurance for lipedema because, as I say, somebody in Europe, we tend to pay out of pocket. I know it's different, like for insurance in Germany and Spain and whatever, but if you come from the UK, you tend to pay out of pocket, and you are on a mission to get lipedema surgeries covered by insurance.
Definitely. I was on a mission. There is no way I would ever be able to pay tens of thousands of dollars for as many surgeries as I needed.
Yeah.
I started the journey back in 2019 when I was diagnosed. And at that time I had PPO insurance coverage, but I didn't have out-of-network option to go to any out-of-network doctors. So I found a doctor in St. Louis that was in network. I flew over there to get my diagnosis. And then he had said, you're going to need surgeries. You're going to need several surgeries. And I started going to see different doctors, some of the more famous ones that are on Instagram, to get a consult, to get a feel for what I need. And my quotes were outrageous. My quotes were like 17 to 27,000 for one surgery.
Yeah.
And they had just started working with insurance, but not many people were getting covered. And I knew since I didn't have an out-of-network option, even with out-of-network, I would have owed a lot of money. But I decided to just kind of sit and see what the process was going on and see who was getting covered, how things were going to evolve. And there was a company out there that I had known about, Cover Lipedema, that helped women get covered. And they helped women get covered as in-network. So I kind of researched that option, and they only work with specific surgeons that are board certified, do the surgery in hospital safely with an overnight stay. And the surgeons that were near me, the more famous doctors, weren't on their list.
Okay.
So I kind of decided, okay, I'm going to just wait and see what's going to happen. I had been, kind of looking at another job. And when I did my job change, I got better insurance and had out-of-network benefits as well. So I knew even if I went to a surgeon that was out-of-network, that was an option, but it was still really high. I think my out-of-network costs maximum would have been $10,000,
still a lot.
Which is less.
Yeah.
Which is less, but it's still a lot. So my lipedema had just continued to progress. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to talk to Cover Lipedema again. And right before I decided to join with them, I spoke to a doctor in Florida, Dr. Batis, and he had told me, he said, we'll bill your insurance, but if you're denied, you're probably going to need Cover Lipedema to help you anyway. So I reached out to them, and they found a doctor in California, which is Northern California, and I'm in Southern California. So it's a lot closer than having to go to Florida.
Yeah.
And I decided to join them. And when you join, they kind of have an outline for you on the steps of what you need to do to get covered, to present your pre-authorization packet, basically cover all your bases so that the insurance company can't come back and say you're denied.
Right.
And if they do, you have a good packet that you have, to come back and say, no, look at this, you didn't look close enough, or whatever the case may be. So I, since I had been doing my journey for years already, I had basically done all of the steps. And they also give you templates of forms to complete, letters to submit, and you just kind of put everything together. They look at it, you take specific pictures, and you identify where your lipedema is, and they review it, make sure everything is good, and then you send it over to your doctor, and your doctor submits it. I saw my surgeon in September. I was approved by November, but the hospital was in network where the doctor was out of network.
Okay.
So we still had a little bit of a battle to get the doctor paid as in network.
Okay.
So that's where Cover Lipedema came in, because the insurance was ignoring me. They were ignoring my out of network exception. So Cover Lipedema stepped in, got some contacts, and kind of pushed it along. And it took a couple of months, but by February, everything was approved. My whole surgical plan was approved as in network, and they scheduled me for my first surgery in May.
Yeah.
So I had my first surgery in May, my frontal, thighs, abdomen debulking, and I'm going for my second surgery in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I saw that. How are you feeling after your surgery? I should have asked that earlier, but you're feeling good?
I'm good. I'm good now.
Yeah.
It was a lot harder than I expected.
Yeah.
You see a lot of women on social media, they're up and going here, going there right after surgery. And I thought that was going to be me. But, I'm not sure. I'm later stage. I'm stage 3, 4. And a lot of the lipedema is in my legs, the upper legs, the thighs to the abdomen. So the first couple of weeks were really tough. I had a lot of pain, and it was difficult, but I'm doing good now.
Good. Yeah, it's a shock to the system. I remember thinking exactly what you just said, that you see people leaving hospital the day after, up and about, walking. I was in bed 3 or 4 days with a catheter in. I just couldn't get out, but I did have a high volume, so I'd not seen anybody have high volume before. But it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong, even though you're not. Anybody's reaction to surgery is like, that's what's happening. Right. But yeah, you think, what have I done wrong? Or but yeah.
You said you had high volume. How much volume did they take the first surgery for you?
I had 5 surgeries. I had 4 that were 15.5 litres and 1 that was 18.5. So I think I've had 80 litres removed. But,
oh wow!
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy to think about that.
I know, but it's funny. It's not funny, but I'm still overweight and I've still got lipedema. So it's like some people, people are so not lucky. I don't want to say lucky, like privileged to be able to deal with it at early stages, because like I think I'm just completely riddled with lipedema. Like when I feel my arms, I can feel the lumpy, like beads, and I know that it's gonna potentially progress, and yeah, it's a horrible situation to be in for us all, really. But the sooner people can get diagnosed and get the fat cells removed, the better, because like the later stages, not only do you have to consider having a lot removed, but then it's the skin, if the skin's going to retract, and yeah, it's a lot for people to go through. So yeah, it's that's why I wanted to speak to you, because it's good getting a different like perspective in a different country, and just anything to help people that are newly diagnosed and they just don't know what to do or where to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And to build off of, you had said that you're still overweight. This isn't a weight loss it's not something that is going to make you skinny.
No, yeah.
It's not cosmetic. It's just to help our system flow a little better and metabolize a little better.
And to stop it progressing
you do see
as well.
Some weight.
Yeah.
Right. And you do see some weight loss, but I know Kara, Pale Ginger Pear on Instagram has said, it's called lipedema math. You may have had 80 liters taken out, which can add up to, however many pounds, but you don't see that on the scale.
Yeah.
It's just however your body responds to it, and hopefully to, like you said, delay the progression and help your body function better.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have said that. I know it's not a weight loss thing, but it's one of those where I like to point out that I've had a lot removed and I'm still overweight, because I don't want people to get their hopes up and think all my problems will be solved once I've had lipedema removed, because I don't know anybody really that's completed their surgeries that they had planned that is 100% happy with themselves and how they look. And I mean, having lipedema goes so deep, like mentally. It's more than physical, it's mental as well. And I just worry sometimes that people think just having the fat taken away just solves all your problems, and it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many women I've seen, in the Facebook groups that are looking for a doctor that will give them the best cosmetic results, the best aesthetic results. And, while that's important, I mean, maybe for younger people, I'm not sure. I'm 47, so, I've spent my whole life hiding my body, hating my body, and, I've come to accept it in the last few years and kind of promote, body positivity. So I'm just going to be thankful to have all of this off and be able to be maybe a little lighter on my knees, so I won't need knee replacements. But, even with the later stage, your cosmetic results, you're not going to have a perfect body, perfect legs. I don't think our legs will ever be smooth because of the lipedema, how it's just damaged our skin.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, definitely. And I think I understand why people at earlier stages want the good cosmetic results. And I feel like there's not a divide, that's not the right word, but there's one side where they've still got that hope for a good cosmetic result, and then there's the later stages who probably have just given up and they just want the pain gone and the mobility back. And I mean, my body was so solid, it was like the skin was going to burst. That's the only way I can describe it. But now I've got saggy skin. I love it because I'm comfortable and I can wear a jacket and it doesn't feel like it's going to cut my skin open or anything. So yeah, it's such a difficult disease for everybody regardless, but I think we've all got different concerns and perspectives, and and we have to remember as well, there's no such thing as perfection. Even people without lipedema aren't perfect. So it's, I know I'm talking about it in such a blasé way, and I don't mean to, but personally I've always wanted to aim for perfection, and I'll never get there, and I've come to terms with that. So I don't blame people for that, but I think there's so much pressure put on people.
Right. And the way our processes work here in the US, most doctors usually submit one surgery at a time. So if you choose to try and do it yourself, and go to a doctor that's in network, or choose to fight for it to be in network on yourself, you might get your legs approved. But then the next surgery, when they submit the surgery, they might deny you.
Right.
And you're kind of stuck having part of your process done. So our system is really flawed. Yeah. Our system is ridiculous. Unless you have money to pay a doctor privately, who, because a lot of these good doctors don't want to work with insurance because the reimbursement rates is so low. They would rather get $25,000 than $2,000 for a 5-6 hour surgery.
Yeah.
And I had talked to one of the doctors who's a lipedema expert and asked him, he's in network with a lot of the insurances. And I asked him, how much do you get as in network compared to these other doctors who are out of network, or even doctors that are approved with an out of network exception? There's such a huge cost difference. The doctors in network get maybe 5,000 to 7,000 for a 5 to 8 hour surgery, and the out of network exception doctor has, done a deal with the insurance to get 10 to 20,000 for a 5 to 8 hour surgery. So, that it makes sense. Why would I want to be in network with an insurance when I'm, getting reimbursed so much less?
Yeah.
So things need to change. Things need to change. Excuse me. And our healthcare system needs to start recognizing lipedema. The doctors need to start recognizing it, and not telling us it's made up, or, just go diet, exercise, and it'll come off. I had bariatric surgery in 2004, and I think I was 330 pounds at first, and I got down to 265, and I couldn't get any lower.
Yeah.
My legs didn't change, hips didn't change, but, everything, I just thought, oh, I just lose from the top down. My face is thin, my, shoulders are thin, but my legs it never made it down to my legs. Mm-hmm. And until I found out about lipedema in 2017, 2018, it was like a light bulb went on. Like, oh my gosh, this is why I bruise. This is why my legs hurt all the time. This is, all the questions were answered. It was just crazy.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I always say, even if we went to the doctor and said, my legs are different to what other people say, I have pain, I have this, it'd still be a case where they'd say, well, you need to go back and lose weight. So even if we have that knowledge, we need the other side to have that knowledge as well to progress through the system. And it's just not there, like you say, like doctors just don't know about it.
Exactly. Every complaint it seems that we have and we go to the doctor for, the answer is always, it's because you need to lose weight. And, that's just it's not fair for everybody. So many illnesses have been missed, cancers have been undiagnosed because doctors assume, oh, you're having this pain, just go lose weight. That, it's because you're obese. Your BMI is too high. That's why. Yeah. And it just needs to change.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder how many people have lipedema. I mean, we've got the statistic, I think it's is it 1 in 9 people? But I think it's going to be 1 in 3. It wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if it was.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know if you're the same, but when you go out and about, honestly, every time I leave the house, I see at least one person that I'm like, they've got lipedema. Every time.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
I know. I'll be driving and see somebody on the road, and my daughter will tell me, "Don't say it. I know what you're going to say." Because she knows. We both know, and we're able to recognize it now from knowing what we know.
Yeah, but it's just that's what boggles my mind, because we can see it and we're not medically trained. Why is the medical professional not caught up with it? And it's because this obsession with being bigger means you're unhealthy. It's just blinkers on, and it's like they can't consider that something could be causing it. And being fat is a symptom. It's like we're causing things because we're allowing ourselves to be overweight. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's complicated, I know, but it's so frustrating for people.
Right. They're not believing that we're not eating, or we're eating less, or we are exercising. And, I'm not sure how it is over in the UK, but, here the doctors, when you go for a physical, it used to be you would put on a gown and they would inspect everything. But now you just walk in, you're in your clothes. They don't even look at you. So if you have pants on, they're going to see you're larger, but they're not going to actually see, the bruises and, the lumpiness, the abnormalness of the shapes of us, unless they actually look at us. And they don't do that anymore. They just, kind of take your blood pressure. So what if the blood pressure cuff hurts? It hurts because our lipedema is painful. and check your heart rate, check your labs, and then call it a day. Unless you're having any symptoms, they really don't do anything else.
Yeah, no, that's the same here pretty much. But I know that I've spoken to people who have gone in with the printout from the NHS website saying this is what I think I've got, and they are just turned away. No, you need to just lose weight. And it's like these people are just in the way. It sounds awful, but it seems like any country you speak to, it's the GP, the primary care doctor that doesn't know about lipedema and is blocking you getting from where you are to the next stage. And that seems like a really big problem.
Right. Yeah. Here in the US, we have to really advocate for ourselves. And I hear so many women ask, well, how can I get diagnosed and where can I go? And, a lot of the vascular doctors are more so the ones that would diagnose and be more aware of it, or the lymphedema therapists, that do MLD in physical therapy, occupational therapy. A lot of them know which doctors can refer. When I first went to my primary doctor, I had already been diagnosed by the vascular surgeon. So I had everything ready to show him. And he's been my primary doctor for maybe, at least 10 years. And never mentioned anything, maybe lose weight here and there. He wasn't so much geared toward me being overweight. But when I went to him and told him what I was trying to do, he was just like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the kind of doctor that would, if another lipedema patient went in, he would say, you have lipedema, but he's open to, what the patients have and, open to the patients advocating for themselves, and that's great.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
It's sad that we have to do that.
Yeah.
We have to be our own doctor, basically.
Yeah. And then for people to be turned away and say, no, you need to do this instead, it's really traumatic for people. And obviously I say doctors, I don't mean all doctors, I better add that in there, because I've had good experiences with GPs,
right,
but it seems to be a recurring trend that's where the blockage is for a lot of people getting diagnosis. But I had a question, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but when we were talking about insurance and if they deny it or accept it, who's making that decision? Is it just a random insurance person?
So it's complicated. A lot of the times it is just a paper pusher that's making that determination. And a lot of the time they don't look fully at what you're submitting. I've heard women submitting over 100 pages, their packet is complete, everything is there, and the insurance comes right back and denies it and says it's cosmetic, because liposuction, usually is cosmetic.
Yeah.
And until cover lipedema came into the picture, there weren't any policies on these insurance with lipedema. But now I know Blue Cross, United Healthcare, specific insurances have a policy that says, what you need to do to be covered for lipedema. You usually have to do 3 months of conservative therapy, which can include compression, MLD therapy, different things that you try, weight loss attempts. And, after you do those 3 months, you can submit it, and you have to show functional impairment. If you don't show that, they'll automatically deny you. So it's a little harder to get covered at earlier stages, but even earlier stages are impaired.
Yeah.
So, if that person approves it, say at Blue Cross, it comes back to you approved and you want to do an out-of-network exception. I had no idea that my insurance has a third-party administrator that makes that decision. So everything was approved. And at my first surgery, I was notified that my tummy tuck, the abdominoplasty, paniculectomy, and liposuction was denied after it was approved.
Right, okay.
And I was like, but this was approved. How can somebody deny it? Why are you going back after the approval? Why are you denying it? And I guess the third-party administrator company changed. So the new company was like, no, you don't need it. Your BMI is too high. Lose weight first. So my doctor, thank God she was on top of it. She resubmitted it as me being post-bariatric. It's been over 1 year since I've had weight loss surgery. So and Cover Lipedema stepped in and spoke to that third-party administrator's attorney, educating more on lipedema, that, it's hard to lose weight with lipedema patients. Weight loss is commonly not an option for a lot of people.
That's a symptom, really, of lipedema, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
weaponized. Goes side by side. Yeah. So, once that third party, spoke to them and everything, they came back and they reapproved it.
Oh, good.
So I'm good to go. And that'll be my November surgery. But, a lot of the women who want to try to do it themselves need to know that, you can submit it and it could say approved, but it doesn't mean you're approved. It's kind of just a pre-approval.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you're going to be covered 100%. If you're in network, you still have your deductible to meet, which may be $500, maybe $1,000, $1,500, maybe higher, depending on your insurance. And you have an out-of-pocket maximum that you have to reach before the insurance will pay 100%. And, I had a prior surgery in February, not lipedema related. So my out-of-pocket costs had already been met. So
Right.
my surgeries for the rest of the year, all my treatments are covered at 100% now.
Oh, good.
Otherwise, I would have had to pay my out-of-pocket maximum.
Right, yeah.
Going back to the insurance, I work in healthcare. My whole entire working career has been in healthcare since high school. So I've learned insurance along the way, and so many people don't know how insurance works. At one of my jobs, when registering people, they think they have insurance, they don't have to pay anything, but it's not the case. It's, you have your deductible, you have your copay or whatever it is. And, that you just need to be educated on it. And I think that should be a mandatory class in schools or in college, for people to understand how it works.
Yeah, it seems unfair, especially, I see tax stuff in the US as well, where you're expected to figure it out, but if you don't pay the right thing, you get in trouble. And it just seems like a system set up for people to fail. It probably is, but yeah, it's true. Like the things that we actually need in life, we don't tend to learn. Well, we tend to learn the hard way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Along the way, after we figure it out and we've been screwed a couple of times, you got to figure it out. But like you said, taxes, that should be another thing. We expect accountants or, certain companies to do our taxes, but it's up to us to keep track of everything and have all our documents. And if we're missing something and then get audited later, then, we end up owing.
I think you've covered it, but I thought I'd ask it again. Does the reason that lipedema insurance tends to be rejected because it's considered cosmetic, does that tend to be the reason, and so it's not like essential?
Right. So the denials that come back, it will generally say not medically necessary or considered cosmetic.
Okay.
And when that happens, I think the insurance companies are just automatically going to deny it the first time. If you're not prepared, you've got to be prepared to appeal it. And there's 3 levels of appeals. There's it's denied, number 1. Then you appeal it, it's number 2. If they deny that appeal, then it goes to an external company that you can then do your 3rd appeal. Okay. And that external company, sometimes it's a doctor, but it might be an ear, nose, and throat doctor looking at something for lipedema. And, they're not familiar with it. So they're going to be like, no, this isn't medically necessary. They can just lose weight. So then they check it off and they deny it. And if the external appeal is denied, then, some people have gone even higher to the commissioner of the state or, to try and fight. But I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to make sure all my boxes were checked and everything was done safely. Everything was done smoothly, and I knew if it was denied, I was not going to have to rely on myself to go up the ladder. That I had, Cover Lipedema, had my back and had the connections that could get me covered and get me, through it. So, I'm just so thankful for that company, and it's up to, anybody to make their own decisions, who they want to go to, how they want to do it. And I wish, everybody could get covered and get the surgeries that they need. like you said, the statistics, I think it used to be 1 in 11,
Yeah.
and maybe it's 1 in 9 now, but it's definitely going to be higher, like you said, 1 in 3, because so many women don't know they have it.
Yeah.
They just think they're fat or think they have lymphedema. And, the commonality with lymphedema, if you've got it in both legs, chances are you have lipedema also.
Yeah.
Lymphedema, true lymphedema, is generally only unilateral. So, it's just education and getting it out there. And I think now I've heard that the plastic surgeons in the US that are getting board certified do have lipedema. They're all educated on lipedema. So that'll be great for the newer doctors. But the GPs and the internal medicine doctors definitely need to be educated too.
Yeah. Seems like such a big task, doesn't it? Just, yeah. And I suppose that's why social media is so good for getting awareness out, because there's just no way that the whole of every doctor could just be educated on lipedema by now. And it's just not possible. So it's good that we've got social media, and that there's like I think I must have been diagnosed 2019, same as you. And the boom recently has been amazing to see. But I know we've spoken about it, the negative side, but I do want to point out that it's very positive, because a lot of lipedema is anecdotal because there's no research, well, up-to-date research. So it's important that we hear everybody and how they cope with it and deal with it.
Definitely, for sure. And, I think a lot of women now that have been diagnosed, and the growth of it has been because of social media.
Yeah.
Everybody sharing their experiences. I just wish more doctors were on social media to understand it too.
Yeah. I know it's it's just like a double-edged sword, where social media is really good for that, but it's also really bad.
There's so much misinformation that's spread, and I know a lot of the Facebook groups on lipedema, a lot of these patients work with the doctors, and, they're super fans of the doctors. So, anybody who tries to talk about, an alternative doctor or one that hasn't been a famous doctor on social media, they immediately redirect them and say, no, that's not good. That's not a good one. You need to go to mine, and I don't know if they're working for the doctor, getting paid by the doctor, marketing for the doctor.
Yeah.
But, so much misinformation is out there. And I think everybody needs to do their complete research, search for patients that have had bad experiences, make sure that you know about them, because it's a possibility with any doctor you go to.
Yeah.
But especially lipedema, because nobody wants to have surgery and then be damaged even more after.
Yeah. With this type of surgery, it needs to be safe and done by somebody that knows what they're doing. And
Definitely.
Yeah, it's I always encourage people to do their research and just talk to other people. And I always find that if somebody is 100% positive and doesn't say a bad thing and just can't say anything wrong about someone, that's a red flag to me.
Right.
Because
definitely
saying something that you didn't enjoy or your experience was different, it's not a diss to the doctor. It's just how you experienced it.
It's reality.
Yeah. It's never going to be perfect.
Reality.
But when somebody doesn't have that and everything was perfect and it was great and everyone should go there, that's when I'm thinking, right, there's something going on here.
Right. And I think a lot of women, they've been shamed so much along the way by their doctors. They go to a consult with a specialist or expert, and the expert, is so understanding and so comforting to them, letting them know it's not their fault. And, they kind of get sucked into it.
Yeah.
And if I'm a doctor and I'm seeing you as a lipedema patient, and I know that the surgery, my quotes for you are going to be, 17 to 27,000, I'm going to be friendly to you. Yeah. I'm going to be the best friend I can to you. I'm going to, rub up, call you all the time. I'm going to, really be, I'm going to pull you in.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of these doctors do to these patients. And I just feel so bad for women taking out mortgages to pay for pay for it out of pocket when they have insurance. Their insurance could be doing this.
Yeah.
But this doctor has sucked them in and made them to believe that his way is the best way, his or her way is the best way.
Yeah.
And it's not always that one doctor that can treat you. There's so many other doctors that you may not even know about that know about lipedema. And just because they're not on social media does not mean they don't know about it and know how to treat it either.
Yeah, that's a really important point. I know a lot of German doctors. I only know German because that's where I went, but I know if they work in a public hospital, I think they're not allowed to be on social media because they are part of the hospital group. But that doesn't mean they're not good doctors. That just means there's rules and regulations in place, which is a good thing, really, because the lipedema medical community is really unregulated and everyone does everything differently, and there's all these different techniques, and yeah, it's a minefield, really.
Right. There's a lot of privacy over here. And I think it's the same with doctors that are with hospital health systems. If they're getting paid by the hospital health system, they can't post their photos either. So a lot of women, they want to see before and afters. And if the doctor doesn't have before and afters, they might be a super great doctor, but because they don't show before and afters, they don't want to go to him.
Yeah.
And, it's just about, going back to research and maybe finding or talking to other women who have had surgery with this doctor instead of, trying to search for photos. Because I know my experience, I was one of just a few patients that went to my doctor because nobody had heard of her before. And Cover Lipedema had found her, vetted her. She had trained with one of the lipedema doctors, I think in Chicago. When I had said where I was going, everybody kind of backlashed me like, oh, that's not a specialist. You live in LA, go to the LA doctors. But I wanted my insurance to cover it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure it was done safely. I have Ehlers-Danlos hypermobile, and I really didn't feel comfortable going home after an hour after surgery or 2 hours after surgery. I wanted to make sure I was monitored overnight and had pain control if I needed it. So, this doctor had recently left the group that she was in and is on her own. So she didn't have any before and afters. But I took the risk. I heard good things about her and just decided to take the risk. So now that everybody, we have a Facebook group for her patients, it's growing now that people hear about her and see that, she's a good doctor and she's getting more experience. So, it's possible for a doctor that you haven't heard of could be knowledgeable.
Yeah. Just
do your research. And, you might have a doctor nearby you too. You won't have to fly across country and have that expense.
And I suppose it's good that you found Cover Lipedema because, like you said, they vet them and make sure that they are experts, and that's like half the problem now. Now lipedema, I suppose, is becoming trendy. Not trendy for us, but trendy for doctors. You just see new places. I've had adverts for places in Manchester, like about an hour away from us, and I'm like, when did that happen? And it's because it's becoming trendy. It's the same with MLD. I've seen you share recently about people becoming trained in manual lymphatic drainage and they're not doing it correctly, and it's good to have that knowledge behind you through Cover Lipedema.
Definitely. Yeah. And they help you find the surgeons, but they're also trying to build a system for the women so that they can go to get their functional exam, their lipedema physical showing that they're impaired, that can be covered by insurance, the MLD therapists that can be covered by insurance. Because, a couple of years ago, you couldn't find any therapists here that would take insurance for it. They were all cosmetic therapists that would do the MLD for post-cosmetic and reconstructive surgery. And you'd pay out of pocket $120 to $140. After my first surgery, I paid out of pocket, but I did my research too and called around and, messaged people, and got so lucky messaging somebody on Instagram who was a private person doing MLD, but she happened to work for one of the health systems here in LA. And I was able to get into that, and my insurance covers that therapy now.
Oh, great.
So all this information we get, it's building something, and it's building something bigger for cover lipedema patients that, less out of pocket for us and less strain. Yeah. Because a lot of us who have lipedema have functional impairment, and there's a lot of women that are disabled because of it and can't afford to pay. Majority of people can't, and there's no reason to take out a loan on your house or go into your 401k retirement, take that money out and give it to these doctors who are just exploiting us practically.
Hopefully this has been a useful video for at least one person that's been looking at surgery. I really hope so. Yeah. And, I'm open to anybody messaging me, if they have any questions about it or need any guidance with it, always happy to help, even insurance questions. It's my job. So, yeah,
I do my job because I like it and I want to help people, help people understand how it works. So I'm always open to questions or messaging.
And you can definitely tell from your social media that you genuinely care, like you want to help people, because I suppose hopefully it comes across from me as well. We've been in that situation of despair where you're just like, I need to figure this out, and we've hopefully figured out a better path for ourselves, so we want to help other people.
Right. And 5 years ago, people were kind of just going blindly with what was available. Yeah. There were only a few doctors at the time that were heard of, and everybody's got to do what they got to do. But now as we've evolved, there's so many more options, and it's getting easier. And I hope in 5 years, it'll be even easier. Yeah. And cover lipedema doesn't expect to be around forever. They're just trying to, boost everything and educate the health insurance companies, doctors. They travel around trying to talk to plastic surgeons to get them on board for lipedema surgery. So, they're just there to help. And hopefully in 5 years, we'll be even better.
Yeah, I think we've said everything. Yeah, it's really good.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I just want more women to know their options and know that they're not alone. There's so many other women that can't afford it, but there are options for you.
Yeah, and that's like the take home message is that there are options, even if there's just one option. That it's not the end of the road. Like there is hope for everybody, hopefully. But yeah,
definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate your time.
It's been great, Amy.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.